Alright folks, let's talk about the big decision every fighting game player faces, picking your main in Tekken 8. I know, it sounds simple. Oh, just pick a character and play. But let's be real, this is the character you'll be spending countless hours with, learning every move, combo and tech just to climb those ranks. And with 32 characters at launch, plus 4 more in Season 1, the choice can feel downright overwhelming. Each fighter in Tekken 8 brings something unique to the table. Maybe you like flashy combos, rock-solid fundamentals, or just someone who looks cool while dishing out the pain. Whatever your vibe, there's a character for you. But here's the thing, you're not just picking a fighter, you're picking a playstyle. Every character feels wildly different, so finding the one that clicks with you, that's a journey. So let's dive into the roster, break down some of these incredible fighters, and help you find your perfect match. I'm quickly moving on to the video, and I'm ranking characters in Tekken 8. Before we start, if you enjoy these types of tier list videos, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Enjoy watching.
My friends, only 0.1% of viewers subscribe. If you like this type of content, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you in advance for your support.
The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Steve Fox, Heihachi, Kuma, Panda, Asuka Kazama, and Lydia. Alright, buckle up Tekken fans, because we're diving into the characters who might feel like they're swimming upstream in Tekken 8. Yup, it's time to talk about the C tier crew. Now, before you roll your eyes or start typing "but I main Heihachi and he's a beast," let me just say, every single fighter in Tekken 8 can shine with enough dedication. But these characters, let's just say they're like trying to win a race with ankle weights on. First up, my boy Steve Fox. As a Steve main, this one stings. Look, Steve is still the king of weaving and bobbing, and his combos? Chef's kiss. But the problem? His bread and butter move, the good old B1, feels like it's had a nerf bat taken to it. It's slower, it trades more often, and honestly, you've got to be so on point to make him work. Don't let the shiny new Lionheart stance fool you. Steve's a high-skill character in a game where others are just, let's say, less of a headache. Now, let's talk about Heihachi. The old man's back, but he's not exactly in fighting shape compared to his Tekken 7 days. Heihachi is the definition of high risk, high reward, but in T8, the risk feels way higher than the reward. His moves are flashy, his damage is nuts, but the execution? Woof. You're working overtime to land those electric Godwin fists, and a single misstep, you're eating a full combo for breakfast. Plus, he's got this very all or nothing vibe, which is cool, until you realize Kazuya just does it better. And then, we've got the dynamic duo, Kuma and Panda. These two are hilarious, don't get me wrong. Watching a bear slap someone across the map never gets old. But funny doesn't equal easy wins. Their toolkit has always been gimmick heavy, and while they've got some tricks up their furry sleeves, they're still held back by risky moves and predictable setups. And let's not forget that their go-to low poke, D-powered B2, is now launch punishable. Ouch. Asuka Kazama fans, I hear you sighing in the back. Listen, she's still got the parries, but Tekken 8's faster pace and reduced emphasis on defense haven't been kind to her. Her gameplay thrives on punishing opponents for getting reckless, but now, she's struggling to control the flow of a match, and her frame advantage is weaker than before. Asuka mains, you've got to earn your respect, and in this game, that's no small feat. Finally, there's Lydia, one of the new DLC fighters, and let me just say, on paper, she looks like she's got everything. Stances, mix-ups, flashy moves, but in practice, it's a different story. The problem is, once your opponent figures out her game plan, Lydia becomes super predictable. Those stance transitions that are supposed to keep people guessing? A well-timed jab or sidestep shuts them down completely. It's like trying to play chess when your opponent already knows your next move. So yeah, the C-tier characters in Tekken 8 are far from useless, but you're going to need patience, skill, and maybe a little luck to make them shine. The good news, if you're putting in the effort, you're already ahead of the pack. The bad news, the pack is still faster than you. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Shaheen, Hwoarang, Claudio Serafino, Jack 8, Leroy Smith, and Zafina. Let's talk about the B-tier fighters in Tekken 8, characters who aren't necessarily the first pick for most players, but still pack a punch when used right. These guys aren't as simple as the A tiers, and they're definitely not as top tier as the S tiers, but with the right effort, they can still crush in any fight. If you're looking for a balanced challenge, then these characters might be the sweet spot for you. Shaheen, for example, has had a bit of an identity crisis in the tier lists over time, but he's actually pretty scary in the right hands. While his low slide can be pretty predictable if the opponent knows what they're doing, his solid toolkit and heat mechanics make him a sleeper pick. Honestly, the fact that not many people have fully labbed the Shaheen matchup yet gives him a bit of an edge. He's straightforward but deadly. Definitely someone you'll want to keep an eye on. Hwoarang, oh boy, let's talk about him. A lot of people assume that all they need to do is mash kicks and let the Taekwondo master do the rest. But if you think you can just button mash with Hwoarang, you're in for a rude awakening. He's all about execution, fundamentals, and practice. Once you get the hang of him though, it feels like you're unstoppable. Like you can just keep attacking without consequences. But here's the catch. Once someone learns how to counter him, Hwoarang can become a real pain to get back into the game. He's a character that requires patience and timing. Now, let's talk about Claudio Serafino. This guy is often overlooked, but honestly, people should be giving him more attention. Claudio has one of the safest pokes in the game with his B1, and he can punish whiffed approaches with his UF4 launcher into a combo that can turn the tide of any fight. On top of that, his heat ability introduces a projectile that adds a whole new level to his game. He's not the easiest character to pick up, but once you get the hang of him, he can be a real headache for your opponent to figure out. Then we've got Jack 8, big, beefy, and surprisingly good in Tekken 8's fast-paced environment. You'd think that a giant like Jack would struggle with the game's offensive focus, but nope, he's still a monster, especially when it comes to poking and footsies. His jab game is solid, and once you get that hit, you can start mixing it up with a variety of mid and low options. And hey, if that doesn't work, you can always go into his macho flex stance to pull out even more options. Jack's great for keeping your opponent guessing and punishing mistakes. Leroy Smith is another B-tier character who's better than ever. His D32 string into Hermit stance gives him the ability to constantly pressure his opponent with strings and mix-ups. He's got built-in parries and some really satisfying combos that can catch your opponent off guard. Leroy doesn't have a ton of flashy moves, but he's got a solid toolkit that makes him a very reliable pick in the right hands. If you want a character who can keep the pressure up without a million tricks up his sleeve, Leroy's your guy. Lastly, we have Zafina, a character who has all the tools but needs time to master. She's not exactly a crowd favorite in ranked play, but professional players like Sonic Fox show just how powerful she can be when played right. Zafina's unique stances and moves make her a tricky opponent, but the real catch is that she requires a lot of dedication to fully unlock her potential. If you're willing to put in the work, she can absolutely dominate. But if you're looking for an easier time, you might want to look elsewhere. Zafina's a character that rewards patience and practice, and when you get it right, she's definitely worth it. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, Kazuya Mishima, Paul Phoenix, Leo, Feng Wei, Lee Shaolin, Raven, Victor, Lars Alexanderson, and Eddie Gordo. Alright, let's dive into the A tier characters in Tekken 8. These are the fighters that aren't just solid, they're the ones that require some effort to master but absolutely reward you when you put in that time. Think of them as the sweet spot of the roster, where they're not too hard to pick up, but getting really good with them feels like unlocking a cheat code for success. First up, we've got Kazuya Mishima. Now Kazuya's not the flashiest of the Mishima clan, but if you're into fundamentals, he's your guy. He's all about spacing, timing, and punishing mistakes. If you've been playing Tekken for a while, you've probably already got a few Kazuya tricks up your sleeve. But the kicker in Tekken 8 is Devil Kazuya in Heat, just an absolute pressure monster. If you can master his fundamentals and capitalize on that heat form, you're looking at some devastating control over the match. Then there's Paul Phoenix, the guy who hits like a truck and has the damage output to prove it. Paul hasn't changed much from previous Tekken games, but that's the beauty of it. He's still got his trademark Demo Man and Death Fist that can wipe out half your health in a single hit. The only downside, Paul doesn't have a crazy amount of strings or mix-ups, so once players catch on to your go-to moves, you'll have to be extra smart to keep them on their toes. Easy to learn, hard to master. He's definitely the character you want if you're feeling confident but still want a challenge to rise in the ranks. Leo is another character you're gonna love if you're into mix-ups. Seriously, this character thrives on confusing the heck out of people. You're gonna be throwing out long strings of attacks that leave your opponent guessing every time. If you've been playing a lot of Tekken 8, you've probably run into a Leo player and thought, how do they keep getting me with that? That's because Leo's mix-up game is on another level. If you want to get good with Leo, you'll need to focus on timing and recognizing which strings hit hardest. Once you've got that, you can really start running the show. Now Feng Wei, if you're looking for a character with both the offense and the defense to frustrate your opponent to no end, Feng's your man. This guy can punish whiffs like nobody's business, and his evasive moves aren't just defensive, they're offensive too. He's got counter hits on deck and an arsenal of strings that can leave you stuck in his combos for days. If you're not careful, Feng can turn a simple mistake into a full combo, so getting the hang of his moves can be a game changer. If you love high execution characters, then Lee Kowlin is where it's at. He's technical, demanding, and definitely for players who aren't afraid of a challenge. You'll need to master his just frames, those tight, precise moves that can turn the tide of a battle if done right. Lee is definitely a character that rewards dedication. The more time you put into him, the better you'll be. But trust me, if you're not precise with your timing, Lee can be a real uphill battle. Then we've got Raven, who's got more options than a fast food menu, but the catch is that you'll need to practice, and then practice some more. Raven's one of those characters who looks deceptively simple at first, but once you dive into his toolkit, you realize just how deep it goes. He's got backflips, evasive moves, and a whole lot of counterattacks, but learning when to pull them off, yeah, that's a whole different beast. Mastering Raven means mastering the fundamentals of Tekken itself. Victor, a newcomer to Tekken 8, is basically the love child of Raiden from Metal Gear Rising and John Wick. He's got an easy to learn style with a lot of flash, and once you pick him up, you'll feel like a Tekken prodigy. His combos are simple but effective, and his strings are so satisfying to pull off. However, don't get too comfortable because once people figure out how to counter Victor's basic stuff, you'll need to rethink your approach. Still, for those just starting out, Victor's a great pick. Finally, let's talk about Lars Alexanderson. This guy is all about that sliding stance. If you can get the timing down, you'll be hard to stop. Lars players are constantly moving, constantly switching up their attacks. It's fast, tricky, and hard to predict, which makes him one of the more fun characters to play once you've got the hang of it. But if you're not ready for that stance pressure, you might get overwhelmed quickly. And there you have it. A-tier characters in Tekken 8. Each one brings something unique to the table, whether it's raw power, mix-up potential, or just insane tech that will make your opponent sweat. It's not always about picking the easiest character, it's about finding the one that fits your style and putting in the effort to master them. The characters in this tier are, in order from top left to bottom right, King, Sergey Dragunov, Nina Williams, Azucena, Jin Kazama, Alisa Boskonovich, Ling Xiaoyu, Reina, Lily, Jun Kazama, Yoshimitsu, Martial Law, Brian Fury, and Devil Jane. Alright, let's dive into Tekken 8's S-tier characters, where the true heavy hitters live. These aren't just your average fighters, they're the ones that will make you feel like you're not even playing the same game once they're in action. You'll either pick them up and start winning matches right away, or after some time, you'll unlock their full potential and make your opponents question their life choices. Let's talk about why these guys are so terrifying. First up, we've got King. Now, King's been a beast in almost every Tekken game, but in Tekken 8, the man is on a whole new level. Thanks to the nerfs to counter hits and buffs to throws, King just keeps the pressure on, never letting you breathe. His mid-range options are great, and those jabs, they're like a 1-2 punch to your game plan. What makes him a nightmare is his insane throw game. Expect 50-50 guesses every time you're in his range. Mess up the throw break and you're in for a world of hurt. Sergey Dragunov is another character you can't ignore. He's all about that pressure, and once he gets his rhythm, it's a wrap. He's got so many fast plus frame moves, and if you block one too many, boom, grab city. And good luck breaking out of that cycle because Dragunov isn't letting up. He's just one of those characters that makes you feel like you're playing catch up while he's already in the next round. Now, Nina Williams might surprise you. She's got all the tools to be an S-tier menace, but strangely, she's not as common in ranked matches as you might expect. However, Nina is like a ninja, fast lows, jab strings, and side steps that leave you feeling helpless if you're trying to counterattack. If you can handle her, she'll make you look like a Tekken pro in no time. Let's talk about Azucena, a character that's perfect for newer players, but scary in the hands of someone who's truly mastered her. She's got this fantastic stance system that's easy to rely on, especially with her signature left punch into stance. But the real danger is her relentless pressure. She can go from a simple running free into two to a whole array of mix-ups that leave your head spinning. It's like you're playing the game and her opponent is just trying to survive. Next up, Jin Kazama, the basic guy, but don't let that fool you. Sometimes being straightforward is the best way to go. Jin's got a solid mix of reliable strings and moves, and once you nail his electrics, you're off to the races. He doesn't have the wild gimmicks that some characters do, but what he does have is consistency. You can just pick him up and start winning, no questions asked. Alisa Boskonovich is a character who's deceptively simple at first, but gets downright scary once you understand her fully. She's got that cute robot vibe, but her chainsaw stance and aerial options make her a serious threat. Even if you're new to Tekken, her moves are so easy to execute that you'll feel like you're having a blast while playing her. Then, once you've leveled up your understanding, you're going to be terrifying to fight against. Ling Xiaoyu brings the fun, but also the frustration. She's got those incredible mix-ups, and with her back-turn stances, you're never safe. If you're not ready to block, you're in trouble. But here's the catch, she's harder to master than some of the other S-tier characters, so while she's got all the potential, it's going to take practice to unlock it. A great Xiaoyu player is a nightmare though. Reina is a bit of a sleeper. On the surface, she's easy to pick up and still be successful, but once you dig deeper into her moveset, you'll see she's an absolute beast. Whether you're relying on a few key moves for a solid game or pulling out her full kit, Reina's versatility shines. That ability to switch gears and control the pace of a match, it's what makes her so deadly. Then there's Lily, a character who loves to keep her opponents guessing. High, mid, low, back turned. It's like she has a dozen ways to trick you, and each one gets more frustrating than the last. What makes her so good is that she's pretty easy to pick up, and her mix-up game is wild, even if you're not a pro. You don't need to put in crazy hours to start making opponents miserable with Lily. Jun Kazama, the mother of the Kazama family, makes her return in Tekken 8, and she's just as formidable as ever. She's all about those plus-on-block moves, which transition smoothly into mix-ups. Jun's design leans into offense, and once you get the hang of her, you'll feel like you're always one step ahead of your opponent. She might not be as wild as some other characters, but her flow is unstoppable once you've got it down. Finally, let's talk about Yoshimitsu, the man, the myth, the legend. Yoshimitsu has always been one of Tekken's most unique characters, and in Tekken 8, that's more true than ever. He's got all sorts of weird stances, evasive moves, and gimmicks that mess with your opponent's head. And that helicopter stance, let's just say it's better than it's ever been. If you can master his wild toolkit, you'll be having more fun than anyone else on the roster. And last but not least, martial law. He's always been a technical fighter, and in Tekken 8, he's easier to execute than ever. But make no mistake, Law is still a character that requires solid timing and knowledge of his moves. Once you get the hang of him though, you'll be a wrecking machine. His balance of speed and power makes him a great pick for players who love to keep their opponents on the back foot. So, there you have it. Tekken 8's S-tier fighters, each with their own unique style, but all with one thing in common, they're powerhouses that can dominate the competition. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned pro, these characters will have you feeling unstoppable once you get the hang of them. Happy fighting! The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.